Your career is more fragile than you think. Let's talk about it. Most professionals don't lose relevance because they're bad at their jobs. They lose relevance because they're very good at the wrong thing for too long. Right now, thousands of highly capable people are being laid off. Not underperformers, not amateurs, experienced, smart, proven, and still exposed. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Your career can look successful and still be structurally fragile. And the worst part, you usually don't realize it while it's happening. You realize it after. I've watched this pattern repeat more times than I can count. The internet, mobile, cloud, social, and now AI. Each time, the same quiet sequence. A new layer of infrastructure forms. Roles start to blur. Then slowly, talent gets repriced. No big announcement, no dramatic moment, just a gradual shift in what the market values and who it values. This is where most career advice completely misses the point. We're told to upskill, learn new tools, stay ahead, which sounds great until you realize you can be highly skilled and yet still be highly exposed. Because the real issue is not your effort, it's your dependency. If your value depends on a specific platform, a specific process, a specific company context, then your career is more fragile than it looks. Even if you're performing well, even if you're respected, even if you're senior, especially if you're senior. Let me make this practical. If your company disappeared tomorrow, would your value transfer? Or would you need to explain it, repackage it, convince someone it matters? That gap, that's fragility. I started my career in the secretarial pool, not exactly where you'd expect long-term strategy to begin. I could have stayed there, perfected it, built an identity around it. Instead, I noticed something. Technology was changing how work happened. I didn't have a roadmap. I didn't have a grand plan. I just made a decision that would quietly shape everything that came after. I moved closer to where things were changing. I learned HTML, not to become technical, but to expand. That pattern repeated itself. At eBay, I watched trust become infrastructure. At Points.com, I saw loyalty behaving like currency long before we called anything digital assets. At Microsoft, I worked on cloud before it was obvious and later helped build a social command center before most companies even understood what social meant. At each stage, I wasn't chasing trends. I was getting closer to the shift. Looking back, it all makes sense. At the time, it just felt like curiosity. Here's what I've learned. Most professionals don't fail because they're incapable. They fail because they stay inside a format that used to work, a title, a function, a system, and they get better and better at it, which is exactly the problem. Because formats are fragile. Infrastructure is not. When infrastructure shifts, roles don't disappear immediately. They blur first, then they compress, then they get redefined, and by the time it's obvious, you're already playing catch up. This is why mid-career feels strange right now. You're experienced, you're capable, you've built something real, and yet something feels off. Not panic, not urgency, just a quiet sense that the ground is moving. That instinct, it's not insecurity, it's awareness. But most people don't act on it. They wait. They observe. They try to figure it out before making a move. Here's the problem with that. Clarity doesn't come before movement. It comes from movement. The professionals who navigate these shifts well don't have better information. They just move differently. They pay attention to what's changing underneath, detach from identity tied to roles, expand into adjacent areas early, build capabilities that travel. They don't wait for stability. They assume it's temporary. This is what I think of as an anti-fragile career. Not a career that avoids disruption, a career that expands because of it. You don't need to panic. You don't need to chase every new tool. You don't need to reinvent yourself every 12 months. But you do need to ask a better question. Are you getting better at something that is quietly losing value? Most people don't ask that early enough. I'll unpack how to assess this properly in the next piece.